Hey, all you folks, and welcome to Kelly's Chronicles, my channel where I sit down with people who have lived and are living everyday lives and listen to their extraordinary stories hidden behind normal, quiet existences because here we believe those lives are the most important and need to be acknowledged, heard, and celebrated as to not be forgotten by the passage of time. Hope all of you had a wonderful week. I had a pretty good week this week. My stepson and his fiance moved down here to Alabama and we're just still looking for a building for our new bar and grill that my husband and I are going to be getting. So that's been our week. We've just been searching high and low and completing a lot of tasks. So we've just been busy over here. But how's your week been, Dad? How have you been over there in Idaho?
Oh, it's been pretty nice here. The weather is incredible. It's up in the 40s. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, was 50 degrees. The snow is melting, what little bit was on the ground, and there's no snow in the forecast for at least a week. And it's a kind of a tragic thing because we need a lot of snow in the mountains to keep our rivers and lakes full, and we're not getting it. So hopefully, I don't want to say this, but hopefully we'll get some snow and refresh the aquifers and the rivers and lakes.
I
So
hope so. I
anyway,
know
the
those kind of
farmers are really, yeah, the farmers and ranchers really sweating it. So anyway,
yeah. Well, you still have until April for really this
yeah,
season to be over for the snow, April, May kind of.
right.
So just kind of
Oh,
waiting right now.
you know, a postscript yesterday, Lizzie and Kelly came up from Ogden with their kids and their dogs and
That's
everything.
very neat.
Had a birthday party for myself and Kelly.
Mhm.
That's Kelly McAtee and Nene. We all have our birthday right within a week of each other. So Lizzie brought a big old cake and some ice cream, and we had beef brisket that mom had fixed up really nice and marinated overnight in a crock pot, and it was great. We had a big family meal and a big birthday party. It was a lot of fun. A good day.
Oh, that's good. I mean, Lizzie's my cousin for everybody out there. Nene's my cousin. They're all my cousins.
Right.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you guys all had a good, fun birthday celebration and you were all able to gather together and celebrate your lives. So I'm glad you enjoyed family time. That's good.
Yeah.
You gonna be working on some projects here pretty soon since the weather is so
Oh
warm.
yeah. Yeah. I got plenty of stuff to do outside, and as long as the weather holds, I've been kind of slowing down because my left hand got tore up by a wildcat, and trying to get over that. But now I can make a fist again, my left hand, and that means I can go back to work. I can hold a hammer again and a drill. So anyway, yeah. So I'll be outside all week trying to get caught up on some of this stuff before the snow, which inevitably will come. There will be snow.
There will be snow.
Yep, there
There
will
better be
be
snow.
snow. Well, in this little valley, though, I mean, not get it in Pocatello, but we'll get it in this valley. It's Snow Valley here. We get tons of snow in here. The
Pocatello
little
is really
valley,
weird. They did not get snow. Pocatello like
yeah, the
barely got
valley's
snow.
only about a half mile wide,
Yeah.
and it's about half mile wide, about 2 miles long. And the clouds just come in here and dump the snow. That's okay. We're ready for it. We got our
Already.
plows and our snow blowers and everything and our shovels. Bring it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you guys are getting ready for it, and I do hope that it does snow. You guys need snow really
Yeah.
bad for the farmers and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah.
So last week we had gone to Arkansas, but Dad woke up this morning and had remembered some memories from Georgia. And like I said before on this channel, we can go forward and backwards, side to side. We don't care. If we need to go back in the past, we can definitely.
You don't care.
We don't care. We can revisit the past if we want to. So we're gonna step back into Georgia, which we all have a special place for Georgia in our hearts in these stories. So we're gonna go back to Georgia, and Dad has some fun stories that he's gonna share. So how about you go ahead and start in on those, Dad?
Okay. Well, the first thing I want to address is my dad.
Okay.
And if you're one of my children or whatever that watching this is your grandfather, Olson. And Grandpa had some quirks which I've inherited. And for one thing, here's something that you need to know about Grandpa. He had sinus condition. I'm not sure if it was what it was, but his nose constantly ran, no matter where he was. As far as I can, he was always carried a handkerchief, and he was constantly, not constantly, but he would periodically blow his nose because it would be running because of allergies, I guess. So he would honk it. I mean, "Wah," "wah." He would tell dad was in the house, blowing his nose. And but one of the things that he was one of his quirks I talked about was he saved everything. He was a child of the Depression, and nothing got thrown away. If he cut a piece of wood and there was 6-inch scrap, he'd save it.
Yeah.
And he had like tons of scrap, wood and plumbing fixtures and wire, you name it. He'd keep it. And I do the same thing. I've got tubs of old plumbing parts and wire, and I got little scraps of wood everywhere. And my wife and my sister-in-law are constantly complaining about all these little scraps of wood. But why don't you just throw that away? No, no, I'm not throwing that away. I might use
Anything. I am not. I believe the best.
it anyway. Dad had a bunch of copper tubing. When you got a trailer, you got to have copper tubing to run your heat because the furnaces in there are oil furnaces. So you got to have a copper tubing from your oil tank to the furnace, and you got to have copper tubing to run because the trailers we lived in were just like travel trailers, and it
Yeah.
had flexible copper tubing for the plumbing throughout the trailer. And so dad had plenty of that because he was always fixing a leak here, put a new thing in. And so I went into the garage one time and I saw this bunch of copper tubing and the light went on.
Mhm.
So I cut off a piece about a foot long I'm not sure how I cut it, but I cut off a piece. And then I crimped the end over with a hammer and hammered it down. So it was open as a piece of copper tubing, probably half inch with one end crimped. And
Okay.
then I went in, I got a bunch of matches and I crammed the copper tubing full of match heads. I'd cut the heads off the matches and crammed them into. Now, of course, this could have exploded at any time and wiped me out, but it never did. So I'm just cramming these match heads in this piece of copper
Okay.
tubing. And then I went out in the woods and I set the copper tubing up on a dirt pile. And then I took a bunch of matches and I made like a fuse, about a foot long, a bunch of matches laid on the ground over to the copper tubing.
Okay.
And then then I lit the string of matches, and it would go over and light these match heads in this piece of copper, and it'd go fire up in the sky. I was a rocketeer. Yeah. And I did that about 5 or 6 times. I can remember cramming that copper tubing full of match heads and seeing I'd use a bigger copper tubing and a and use different kinds of matches. And
Was it maybe
anyway,
were the matches reacting to the copper and making it like
no, they were burning.
yeah.
They were burning
Well, that's what I was
inside the
saying.
copper tubing, and it
And
had
that's what
propelled it.
caused it. Wow.
Yeah. So I did
And
I
then
did that a couple times, and I wonder I didn't kill myself. And
I used to
I
have
guess you
bottle
remember.
rocket battles, yeah.
Yeah, that
Little craft
it's about
crazy stuff
it's
when you're
kind
a
of like a
kid.
bottle rocket, only different.
Yeah.
Uh, and you
More
remember you
damaging.
remember what I was telling you about? We were near an Air Force base. We were like about a mile off the end of the runway
Yeah.
of the Air Force Base. This is a training base. It was an all-weather fighter interceptor school for fighter pilots that training them to fly in rain and wind and all this kind of stuff. that they would encounter when they were in an alert hangar somewhere, sent up to intercept Russian bombers, basically. And so one night, we were all sitting around, I guess, watching TV or something. And we heard this gigantic explosion. Everybody ran. I mean, everybody in the trailer park ran outside. I can remember that. Everybody's out there looking up in the sky, and there was this trail of fire from way up straight overhead, and we're all looking up, and there was a fire trail of flame where what we found out later was an F-86, which was a fairly advanced fighter for the time. And it had caught on fire at altitude, probably 10,000 feet or something, and it had streaked down. And I never found out if the crew got out or not. They probably did, but we don't know. Anyway, it went streaking down and crashed into the impact area a couple of miles away, a big fireball and a tremendous explosion of the jet fuel. And that was that. And then it was dark. It was night, and it was cloudy too. And so this fire cloud just kind of mixed in with the other clouds as this jet went down and crashed into the impact. They have a big 30,000 acre impact area that he crashed into. And then a different time, a T-33, which was another Air Force trainer, had a double cockpit on it with a pilot and a co-pilot, probably a trainer and his student. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to make it to the runway, and they crashed it was probably a quarter of a mile away from our house, as they were trying to get into the runway. And they didn't eject, and they did the worst thing you could do in a plane, and that's went through a bunch of pine trees, and just broke off probably 40 or 50 pine trees at various heights off the ground. The first ones they hit were up pretty high, and then they got down to where there was just a stump left, and there's pieces of plane everywhere. And tragically, the two pilot and a co-pilot were killed, and they found body parts strewn about. They found a helmet with the head still in it. They found a flight boot with the foot still in it. They found, it was a big cleanup. Air Force had to send special crew over there to make sure they got as much of the corpses as they could get. And there was no explosion. It was amazing. They think it may have ran out of fuel, and that's why he crashed. And there was no explosion. It just was torn to pieces by the trees, and because those aircraft are made out of aluminum, so there's not much. They just come apart. Anyway, that's just back in those early days of jet aircraft. And this was the jet aircraft didn't come into play until the very end of World War II, in about 1945, 46. And this was only 10 years that they had been working and flying jet aircraft. And all the training was on jet aircraft, primitive jet aircraft, but jet aircraft. Okay, that's enough of that. Enough of that grim stuff about pilot training.
Yeah.
There's a young sergeant that was the unofficial game warden for the crash, or for the whole air base.
Okay.
His name was Sergeant Wood. Sergeant Wood was a local boy. He was born and raised in Georgia. He knew those woods. Matter of fact, he had hunted in those woods before the base was built.
Wow.
And so he was an old timer there, and he'd go out, and he had the world's record for catching rattlesnakes.
Wow.
On base, in the impact area and on the base, he caught over 400 rattlesnakes in 24 hours.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of rattlesnakes to catch in 24 hours.
He had a snake skin up in his house, or in his trailer, because he lived right there with us in another trailer. Mm-hmm. And he had a snake skin up on a wall. It was 7 feet long, about 2 feet wide. and it had 12 rattles. He had the rattles up there on the board with the snake skin, and so it was at least 12 because they
Lots of
molt
rattlesnake.
about yearly, and when they molt with a rattlesnake, they add another rattle, and so he had 12 rattles. The snake was about 12 years old, but it was huge rattlesnake, and I even have a neckerchief slide for you. Boy Scouts, you have these, little slide that goes on your
Yeah.
scarf, and I've got one made out of rattlesnake skin somewhere, and it was caught by Sergeant Wood. And Sergeant Wood had a 55-gallon drum sitting in his yard full of baby alligators. And and one day his wife ran into the barrel and tipped it over.
Oh,
And there
no.
were baby alligators all over the trailer park. And he's out there and he's scared. He's really upset. He said, I lost my baby alligator. And he's out crawling underneath trailers, catching them little gators and putting them back in the barrel, putting some water back in there. Yeah, he was pretty upset with his wife. How dare you run in my gator barrel? And then Sergeant Wood, he had a friend, one of his fellow airmen, and he said, "Hey, Sergeant Woods, I got a really good date with this girl. I'd like to marry her, but I need to have a good car. I got this old beater, and could I borrow your car?" And Sergeant Woods says, "Oh, sure." He says, "Yeah, go out there and have a good time, have a good date." And next day, he brings keys back, and he says, "No, Sergeant Wood," he said, "we went to drive-in last night, and we were sitting there in that drive-in, and it sounded like there was something moving around up in the headliner of the car, and then down in the back seat where the side trim is there, and we couldn't figure out something up there." And he said, "Oh yeah," he said, I lost a baby rattlesnake in there a couple of weeks ago. He's probably in there crawling around." The guy says, "Baby rattlesnake."
Oh, my God. You're like, it's baby rattlesnake. Whatever.
Yeah, it's okay.
He's
You
like,
didn't
God,
get bit,
God,
did you?
where's that baby rattlesnake I lost? Where'd it go?
And Sergeant Wood was out with a friend of mine, and I think it was one of the Scout Masters or something, and or Cub Scout Masters, and he was telling this story to Dad, and he said in this car with Sergeant Wood, and we were driving down the road, and looked up there, and there's this big freaking rattlesnake crawling across the road. Sergeant Wood slams on the brakes, grabs a towel, and runs out. And the guy said, "What are you doing with that towel? Go ahead, you're gonna get killed." And you're and he goes out and he gets in front of the snake. Then the snake coils up, gets ready to strike, and Sergeant Woods shakes that towel in front of the snake, and the snake struck the towel and got his fangs caught in the towel. And Sergeant Woods reached and grabbed him by the back of the neck, and goes in the car and looks around the trunk and finds a bag and sticks a snake in the bag and ties a knot, throws it in the trunk.
Oh my gosh.
It was like nothing for him. Yeah, that's how you do catch him an old snake.
What was he doing with all of them? Was he killing them, or was he like taking them in for research, or like?
Well, I'm not sure what he did with them after he caught them, but like I said, he had that world's record for catching rattlesnakes in 24 hours. So I'm not sure what he did with them. I know that there was reptile farms for the tourists down in Florida. You go down into Florida, there's tourist traps all over the place, and one of the ones was a reptile farm, and we went there. We would go down into Florida, and Dad would drive around down there, and we'd go see these different places. We went to this reptile farm, and they had a snake pit, and it was like probably 10 by 10 feet, and it was probably 10 feet deep. And the guy would come up and he'd get on a ladder and climb down in the snake pit. And there was probably freaking 50 rattlesnakes down his snake pit, and a bunch of water moccasins and other poisonous snakes. And he had his snake boots on, so they wouldn't hurt him. He'd grab a snake, and he had this little table set up there and had these glasses on it. And intentionally, they were clear glass, and they had a balloon over the top. And he'd take that snake and pinch the back of his neck, and he'd open his mouth up, and he'd
Yeah.
stick the fangs down through that rubber and massage his head, and the snake would squirt venom down into that cup, and that's how they made anti-venom. They would use a that guy was making anti-venom because they would take that venom from that snake and mix it with some some sort of like alcohol or something, and then if you got snake bit, they would inject that into you and keep you from dying.
Yeah.
And so they had, and that's where probably a lot of Sergeant Wood's snakes went down to that reptile farm and other reptile farms.
He was
And
saving
there was a
lives.
guy, that's right. And there was a guy that ran around town, and we would see him from time to time, call him a snake man. The
Okay.
snake man. You remember watching Ernest Saves Christmas?
Yeah.
And there was and Ernest trying to get into that movie
Brings the pickup
studio, and he
truck.
had that
Yep.
old truck that a Voca snake farm on the door, and he
Yeah.
comes out, says, "They're poison, poison snake." That's what this guy was. This snake man, that was him.
Oh,
I swear, he was. he was just, but he was an old guy. He was probably in his 60s or 70s. He had this old beat up pickup truck, and he had cages of snakes in the bed.
oh my
Every time
God.
he'd stop at a gas station, we'd run over there and look in there. There'd be rattlesnakes, striking at the screen, and then he'd have a couple water
God.
boxes over and beat on it, and he'd come out, "Oh, get away from that damn truck, you kids! Hey, sit with
Oh,
me, come here, dang."
hey.
And he'd get in his truck and drive off. And he said he'd got bit. They said he was immune to snake bites. He said he would get bit, and he would just put a little iodine on it, and that'd be it. Never, he wouldn't even get sick.
No,
And
I've heard of people being immune to snake bites over time. They
yeah,
they they get a little bite and they just keep going from there so that they can build up a
yeah.
tolerance in their body, which is crazy to me.
So
I would die like
this was
instantly if I had
the
a snake
snake.
bite. I just
Yeah, I never heard him say there was pies and snakes, but I know he would have. If we'd have really interviewed him, he probably would have said, "Yeah, no pies and snakes."
oh my God.
And
I've been bit by a
yeah,
king snake before, and that hurt really bad. It was a 4 foot
yeah.
king
Well,
snake.
king snakes eat snakes.
Yeah, they do. They're good to have around.
That's
Like
right.
copperheads.
King snake is a predator of snakes,
Yes, they are.
and they will kill and eat snakes.
Good little guys to have
Anyway,
around.
yeah, and so let's see.
That's awesome. That's
Blah, blah,
crazy that
blah.
you
Okay.
just run around grabbing
Uh,
snakes.
here's another one. Here's another one. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, the right next to where our trailer was right on a dirt road, and across the dirt road, and about maybe another, at the very most, is a quarter. It was a quarter mile, but I think it was closer than that, probably a couple of 100 yards. Okay, was
Okay.
a railroad track, and this was the Atlantic Southern Railroad, if I remember right, or maybe Norfolk Southern Railroad. That was one of the main lines running past on that railroad track, and it went down about a quarter mile, and it crossed that dirt road, and went down and went past the Air Force Base on down into Florida. And it was a main line from Atlanta and Baltimore and all those cities on the East Coast down into Florida. And this was back in the 50s. So they still had passenger trains. And it was really cool because we'd hear the train whistle because it crossed the dirt road up about a quarter mile up the other way. And they would blow the whistle for the crossing and then it would go down about a mile where it crossed another dirt road, and it would blow the whistle there. So you could hear that whistle blowing at night, and you could look out across that field, not a couple 100 yards, and you could see the lights and the passengers in their cars.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the coolest thing to see those people in that train walking around. It was like, whoa, you
Whole other
know?
world.
To a little boy, it was amazing that there were actually people in that train car moving around and I don't know, maybe sleeping or eating dinner or whatever, but they're in there walking around and we would go down during the day, we go down, there'd be a passenger train coming by. We go down and wave at them, and they'd wave back. It was really pretty cool that
Yeah,
we got to see that part, that the basically the end of rail passenger service in America.
that's true.
Because it not soon after that, they shut all that stuff down, and people just stopped taking the train. They'd drive their cars or take an airplane.
Yeah,
They
it's
were
more
gonna,
of a city transportation situation
yeah,
nowadays. They have, of course, Grand Central Station that
yeah,
runs into New York City, and they have the Amtrak that runs across the country. But it's
right.
unless it's for
Very,
cargo.
very, yeah,
Mhm.
very limited. They don't
Well, in
do
other
that too
countries,
much.
like in Europe, their trains are their main is one of their main transportation resources, as well as like Japan. I
Right.
know that they run
And
trains over China.
Yeah, China has
Not in
tens
America.
of thousands of miles of high-speed railroad, and it's one of the main things. But I've heard that they're having some real problems with track maintenance and overhead. They're not making the money that they thought they would, and
That's terrible.
they're having the rail transport compared to aircraft is pretty dead.
Mm.
Aircraft have taken over almost all of the rail transport around the world, and it's safer too. You
Oh,
don't
yeah,
hear plane-
trains
yeah.
very rare for a train to crash. I'd rather be in a train than a plane anyway. I
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do not like flying very much. It's very difficult for me to get up in a plane. I have a hard time. I don't like being enclosed in a tiny space with a lot of people. I
Yeah.
I'm always worried about
Not a
stuff, the
it,
very uncontrolled environment, and I have
yeah.
no yeah. When you're a truck driver, you're in complete control of that vehicle, but when you're in a plane, there's, like, no control, but even, like, a train has control because it's on tracks. Can only go
Yeah.
there's a lot of control there, but with a plane, it's like I'm depending on 2 guys, and I hope they had a good night's sleep. Please.
Truck driver.
Uh,
You gotta be if you're not driving, you're not happy.
that's right.
Who's
That's right.
driving this car? Who's driving this truck? Dadgum this stuff. You're crazy. Can't even back this thing up.
I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I am a land mammal. I don't like being on the ocean very
Yeah.
much either. I just have a hard time.
Uh,
You're you
dude.
you go to sea and you're, like, at home. For me, I'm just like, "This boat could sink, and I could die. I could die walking down the I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I don't feel very comfortable sometimes riding in an airplane. You gotta that it's safe. Statistically,
It's very
there's
safe.
a 1,000,000 to 1 chance of dying in a plane crash, and if you're in a car, the odds are a lot worse.
Very, very high.
Yeah, they
Really.
kill about 40 to 50,000 people a year in America on the
Yeah.
roads. But it's not as bad as China because they kill 100,000 people over there on the roads. Anyway, uh, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about in Georgia. I don't know if I brought this about water skiing at Twin Lakes. I was about 11 or 12 years old, and there was a Air Force recreation area called Twin Lakes,
Okay.
and I would either ride my bicycle over or mom or dad would take me over and drop me off at the rec area, and I would help there was a sergeant there that ran the ski they had a ski rental, and they had life preservers, they have sodas, and it's kind of like a little convenience store slash rental thing for the Air Force there for Air Force personnel, and it's Twin Lakes, and it was full of gators. And so sometimes the sergeant running the boat, he would take me out and run me up and down the lake, and he'd say, I'm not water skiing here. I'm trolling for alligators."
Oh my god.
And
Get
anyway,
your ass
I
down.
got to be pretty good. I would get like if I worked an afternoon helping him out, I would get an hour of ski. He would take me out, or somebody would take me out and tow me. Have towboats there, and they would tow me, and I got to be where I was pretty good. I was slalom skiing, and I couldn't get up on one ski, but I would kick off one ski and then ski on the other one, slalom skiing, and I was pretty good for a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And one day I was skiing and on slalom skiing, and what they would do is they would go over. There was a dock that went out in the lake, and they would go up and they would get about 100, 200 feet away from the dock, and they would make a turn, and then the skier would let go of the rope and just glide into the beach. And unfortunately, there was a bunch of weeds, water plants on one side of the pier, and I got let go of the rope, and I was gliding in gloriously with head held high, and my ski caught in these weeds,
Ooh.
and the ski stopped, and I didn't, and I was flipping over and landed in a bunch of weeds, and sputtering, and I raised up, and unfortunately the ski didn't stop perfectly. It kept going a little bit, and I came up underneath the skeg of the ski, which is a fin sticking down, sharp aluminum thing, and it cut the top of my head pretty good.
Ow.
And so I came out of the water and blood streamed down my face and everything. I said, "Hey, Sarge, I think I hurt myself." And he goes, "Oh my eyes," because he's this Air Force dependent child dying on him. So as he runs over, he scooped me up and stuck a towel on my head and threw me in a car and drove me to the Air Force base, to the clinic on the Air Force base. And they shaved a little part of my hair and stitched me up. And boy, I'm telling you what, when I went to school, well, this is in the summertime, but I went to school, I think it was like right at the end of summer.
Yeah.
But I remember going to school with a shave spot and this bandage on my head and everything. Everybody going, "What happened? What happened?" You know, and I said, "Yeah, well, I got in a fight with bears."
Got attacked by an alligator.
You know, I got to tell the story about 100 times, and skiing accident. All the guys are
Gosh.
envious. The girls are all, "Oh, I hope you're not hurting too much."
You want to go on
The
a
guys are
date?
going, "He's okay. He's okay. I got cuts all over my head, worse than that." You know,
Oh my
typical.
gosh.
You know, typical 7th grade garbage. And
I go off.
so that was one of my war wounds there that I got when I was a kid.
That's fun.
And okay, uh, let's see. We're going to go to Wisconsin
Well, we were
or
in Arkansas now.
Arkansas
We're back
because
in
I got a good Wisconsin story there. Remembered.
Okay.
So you want to do a Wisconsin story? Okay,
Yep.
We're shifting gears and we're going to go to when I was in the 8th grade in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Okay, there was you remember, I was on this when I was going to Badger Elementary and getting graduated from the 8th grade and all that kind of stuff. That was a summer before we moved to the Air Force Base. And okay, this like I was talking earlier, that this trailer park was built on the side of a hill. Okay, and the hill it was, I don't know how long this hill was. It was quite, I would say, at least a half a mile long.
Mm-hmm.
And on one end of it, there was a bridge across a railroad cut. The railroad had cut through this hill down on the other side of the hill from the trailer park. And there was a bridge across the railroad cut and it went down the hill. And incidentally, at the bottom of the hill, after you went over the bridge, was a McDonald's. And it was one of the first McDonald's ever in the world. And it was like probably number 10 or something like that, McDonald's. It was pretty primitive. It has one of the ones where they had no seating. You come in your car, order your food, and get out. And yeah, so we would go there occasionally and get their 15-cent hamburgers and stuff like that. If I had any spare change, I'd like to go to McDonald's. or go to the dairy bar, one of the two.
Yeah.
Anyway, this railroad cut was there was a driving range on the other side of the railroad. There was a driving range, and we'd find golf balls all over the railroad tracks and up in. The guys, the really good golfers would hit the ball completely out of the driving range onto the railroad tracks, and we'd pick them up because you
Gee.
could tell they were all orange.
Yeah.
And and so anyway, there was a bunch of us, about 4 or 5 of us down there one day. Oh, we had all kinds of I had good playmates in that trailer park,
Yeah.
and we were down on the railroad tracks one day, and going down by the cut, and this one guy says, "Hey, let's climb the cut." And I went, "What? Yeah, let's climb up." And this was a sheer wall of rock where they had cut through this, and it was probably, I would venture to say, at least 40 feet, maybe higher. And and I'm a kid, so everything is exaggerated, but it was pretty good. It was a deep cut. I would
Yeah.
say at least 40 feet. And so these other boys, they go over and they start climbing up the side of this sheer rock wall, and they're just scrambling up there. I said, "Okay, Chuck, yeah, you can do this." So
Yeah.
I start
Yeah.
climbing up
You can
the
do it.
side of this cliff,
Yeah.
and I get up about 10 feet from the top, and I froze. I was just, my legs and my hands and I was just shaking, and just totally hanging on the side of this cliff. And I'm maybe 30, 40 feet off the ground, and I'm hanging on this rock wall. And all these other boys are already stopped saying, "Come on, Chuck, don't be, what are you, a wimp or something? Get up and come on up." I can't move. So finally, this one boy, he said, "Shut up, Chuck, take your hand and put it up over your head, and there's a ledge up there. I can see a ledge there, so put your hand on that ledge." No, okay, I got it. He says, "Now take your other hand and put it up next to that one. And that ledge is pretty low, so now you got two hands on it. Now down below, there's got to be a rock or something you can put your foot on." And so he mentored me up the side of the last 10 feet up that cliff and got me on the top. And I was crying. I was
Yeah.
sick. I was totally
Wow.
terrified. I thought I was gonna die right there. And
And you could have.
he he got me on the top of it. And man, I almost hugged him.
Oh, yeah.
Thank Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I don't know what happened. I just couldn't move. He says, "Okay, that's okay. We got you up."
Oh, that happens. Yep. That
So,
happens with
yeah, and
climbing.
that was
You freeze.
one of the things one of the terrors of childhood that I can remember, just
Ooh,
facing. I mean, I was literally facing death, because if I'd have fell off that cliff side, I'm sure I'd been
no,
killed
you
or
hurt.
severely injured. Anyway, that's just one episode of childhood stupidity. I should have said, "Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys climb the cliff and I'll go around.
Yeah, I'll go the back
I'll
way.
see you on the other side."
Good.
But
I
yeah, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
gosh,
So
that is
yeah,
wild. That is wild. Well,
so
we all do crazy things when we're kids.
yeah,
We think that we're invincible and we're not, and we're just not. And we do things that would scare the
yeah,
absolute pants off of most parents and just s- scared to death. Kids are gonna do something
yeah.
dumb. There's stuff that even I
Now,
did as a kid. I don't know how I didn't die or get hurt. I'd climb 100-foot high trees. And I don't know how
oh
my
yeah,
mom didn't come outside and say, "Get out of that tree. You are way too high up in that tree."
I think Billy fell out of the tree one time. Or Vicky, or is either
I
Vicky or
did.
Billy fell out of the tree one time. Fortunately, there was a bunch of leaves down. Yeah, that's where we dumped all of our leaves, was in underneath those
Yeah.
trees, and so they fell into the leaves. It didn't hurt them too bad, but yeah, you guys would get up in them trees and you'd be rocking back and forth like, yeah, because those are old pine trees and they were real flexible.
Oh
Yeah, it was
yeah.
crazy stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
But Arkansas, I mean, overall, Arkansas, where we lived, was an incredible place for kids
oh,
because
yeah,
it was a
cold
circle
too.
drive, paved circle drive. You could ride your bicycles around there all day long
Mhm.
till your legs bled, and nobody would ever run over you. Had a
Yeah,
big patch of woods in behind there, and that was before they built the remainder of the houses. So there was an apple orchard or
the pine
an
orchard.
orchard of some kind,
Yeah, it was a pine
and then there
orchard.
was a big, bunch of pine trees because there was a fuel farm in between behind her house. So you had an open field back there, and oh, it was great for kids. There
Well,
was
we just play
no
in the field, we didn't care because they couldn't do anything on that field because they have so much
right,
piping underneath the ground, and that's where they have all the
yep,
reserves is underneath the earth, and so we just run around, they
yep.
didn't care. Just stay out of the way of the mower when they'd mow the field. They'd hay the field for us, and we didn't care. We had a great time. It was a great childhood. We had fun. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we were blessed to have that. I mean, it was just accidental actually because when mom hurt her, she fell and hurt her arm. We needed to take care of her, and so we came back to Arkansas. And fortunately, that house was vacant or
Mhm.
was being sold right next to mom.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, that was incredible that came open exactly the time we needed it. We were blessed. There was
Very.
no there's the Heavenly Father interceding and helping out this stupid old sailor and keeping him where his children would have a place to grow up and have a wonderful childhood. And that was
Right.
just instant. I mean, it could have been another house vacant anywhere in the circle for sale, and we would
Yep.
have been not. We wouldn't have had that. There wouldn't have been that little slice of heaven right there
Mhm.
for kids, and it was wonderful. We just took advantage of it. Our four youngins out there running crazy,
That's right.
running up them trees, running out across
Around,
the field.
hanging out with
Can't had all
the
kinds of
tourists.
yeah, riding their bicycle around the circle
That's
until they was
right.
dizzy.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it was a great place for kids.
It's a
Unbelievable.
good place to grow
Probably
up.
probably no place like that, at least in Northwest Arkansas. That was the only circle drive I think there was anywhere. I don't remember being another circle drive anywhere. That was
Yeah, no.
incredible. Just
Yeah.
that was incredible. And then the fact that they had all that the woods and trees and stuff out in the back. We had a big lot, so yeah, so we could have swimming pools and all that kind of stuff. It was great. We loved it, and
Oh, yeah.
you kids benefited from having that to to just be kids and just
Oh,
run
yeah.
crazy,
We had
scream
a
and holler around.
yeah,
Because a lot of places you run
Mountain
around
West.
screaming and hollering, and they go, "Them year old bratty kids out there making all that noise. You better Listen, you better take care of them kids. One of them was in my yard yesterday. He was in my yard and stomping around in my grass. I'm sorry, but that was not a problem
It
there.
was not a
Yeah,
problem. If it
yeah,
was along a property line, nobody really cared. Nobody really cared.
yeah. And you can
Or
make all the noise you wanted to because no, it was nobody cared. It was like one neighbor had a bunch of dogs, so they
yep.
couldn't complain.
Nope.
And the other side was they had kids, so they couldn't complain. Babysat over there
Yep.
and had kids
That's
running
all
all over
you
the
can do.
place. So yeah, it was amazing. It was really and the more I think about it, the more I am grateful for having that home and spending 20 years there and raising you babies.
I think it was a
Incredible.
good opportunity for you to find some, I guess you could say, solace with Arkansas, or find some peace in your heart with Arkansas. So, because I know that you
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. Now, my aversion of Arkansas is goes way beyond the
oh, yeah.
children.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going I'm going back to 1963, long before you children were born,
Yep.
and all the grief I had back in the 60s before you there, and then going to high school there, going to
Mhm.
college there, and
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
and just and the whole thing of Arkansas. Now, in retrospect, if I would have invested in Walmart, I would probably be singing the praises of Walmart because I would or of Arkansas because I'd probably be a freaking millionaire. But
Yeah.
not having the foresight to see the future like Dad did, because he ended up with pretty good chunk of Walmart
Yeah.
there. I think 13,000 shares or 13, maybe 1,300. Anyway, he had a pretty good chunk of Walmart stock, and
Where did
because
Walmart stock?
he listened to Sam Walton,
He
because
did.
Sam Walton he was his bud. He was a good friends with Sam Walton and JB Hunt,
Mhm.
and the way he got that was the American Legion had an award for companies that hired veterans, and they would had like a almost like a contest, and they would give out these awards for hiring veterans. And JB Hunt and Sam Walton were both veterans, and they employed veterans. Like Sam Walton was an Army intelligence officer in World War II, and
Yep.
he was also a trained pilot. I'm not sure if that was military training or what, but he was a pilot. And JB Hunt was also a veteran. I'm not sure what he served in, but he employed a lot of veterans. And so Dad would get this plaque or whatever for it would basically say, congratulations for hiring veterans, and we're going to give you this plaque. Anyway, he would go. Sam Walt would want to see him personally to give. He didn't want that plaque going to some underling. He wanted to have it personally delivered, and Dad would go into his office and they would chit chat for a while, and then Sam would give Sam the plaque, and I think they would even have the newspaper there taking pictures. Anyway, Sam Wall, every time Dad would come in there to give him, because he got it every year. I mean, he's a big guy in a block, so he got it.
Yeah.
He got it every year, and Sam kept saying, "Harry, you need to buy some stock." Said, "This going to take off. You need to buy some stock." And Dad would say, "No, I'm not buying. I
No.
don't believe in this stock stuff." And Sam would kept saying, "You got to buy some stock." Says, "What if I gave you two? If you bought one share and I gave you two shares, would you?" And Dad's, "No, I don't know to do it." And
Wow.
finally, after probably about 5 or 6 years, Dad finally said, "Okay, Sam, okay, I'll buy some of your stock." And I think he
There you
bought like
go.
$500 worth, not much.
Yeah.
But we would go 2 for 1, 3 for 1, and Dad kept, building on that initial purchase.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did well. And JB Hunt, the same thing. JB Hunt tried to get me to drive for him. Dad would come. He'd say, "Oh, hey, Chuck, you would you like to have a really good job?" And I say, "Doing what?" He said, "Driving a truck for a JB." I said, "No, are you out of your
No way.
mind?" Said, "I don't have a commercial driver's license and not going to get one
Yeah.
because I'd have to go to school or something. And I would rather spend my time in college and not working for JB Hunt." And he said, "Okay." And he said, "Oh, by the way, if you do go to work for JB Hunt, you're gonna have to shave that mustache off because he don't like facial hair."
No way, man.
And I said, "What? You mean what's my mustache got to do with driving a truck?"
That's funny.
It was yeah, I totally rejected that.
Man.
Yeah, it was
Tales from Arkansas.
yeah.
Tales from Arkansas. So, well,
Yeah, Arkansas, let me here's kind of one aside is when we moved from now we had a trailer, right? So Dad moved the trailer from Wisconsin to Arkansas, and we went into a trailer park, and that trailer park was where we ended up in a trailer in Springdale, and the owner was from Ohio. He'd been a welder his entire career, and he had been welding a 55-gallon drum, and it unfortunately had some flammable residue in it, and it exploded and hit him in the face, and his face was all scarred up and messed up. But he was still able to, he didn't lose his vision or anything. And he was
yeah.
still welding, and he was an incredible welder. He made little cars. He would take the engine out of a car and make a frame for it and put the steering wheel and everything. They had these little, and they would you use it to tow trailers around. And he built that from
Wow.
scratch. And right there on the top of the hill where we were living, there was a North American Van Lines office right
Okay.
there. And so, in the first summer we were there, I went over and I said, "Do you need any help? I'm looking for a job." And I'm like, I would be like about 15 or 16. And he said, "Oh, yeah." He says, "We definitely need to have some help this summer." And so I started moving
Mm.
furniture. And I'm telling you, the first job we had was in Eureka Springs, and it was this house up on top of this little
Oh,
hill, and it was about 30 steps going up the side of this hill to this house. And guess what? They had a hide a bed,
oh,
couch, and they had a
oh,
freezer and a refrigerator. And me and this driver, the driver and me, that was it. With no other crew. And we hauled that stuff up the side of that mountain. I don't know how I did it. But we did her and got up there and got this person moved in.
wow.
And I worked about another week, and I said, "I can't do this anymore. It's
Yeah.
killing me." And so I quit. So I quit and I got a job as a dishwasher. And I told the story about that, about the guy.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
you told the story about that. Yeah, you told
I
that story
spent
last time.
with a
Um,
ladle. So I quit. So quit the moving business and started being a dishwasher. Made a lot less
but
money, but
you
I at least didn't
yeah.
kill myself. Yeah, in order to do that stuff, you got to be a pretty herky
Yeah, you do.
dude. And I was a scrawny kid. I probably weighed 120 pounds soaking wet.
Man.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
well. Well,
So that's one of my Arkansas
yeah,
stories.
we definitely have
Man.
lots of Arkansas stories to go over, and then we'll eventually
Oh,
be
yeah.
heading into the next part of your life, so but we're out of time for the day, so we'll wrap it up right here. You all have a wonderful week out there this week, and we hope that you like, comment, and share on this video, share with your friends and family, and please be safe out there with all the traffic and the weather, and we will see you all next